Fifth Hour Radio Show.
Michael, let's start off letting our listeners know a little about your beginnings. Where are you originally from, and how did you first get involved with music?
Orlando, Florida. And I started learning to play music probably by the time I was 6. Violin, accordion, anything I could pick up, or was forced to pick up by my parents. Started on stringed instruments at about, well, not fiddle, but guitar, at around 12.
So what was it about bass guitars that got you so excited? You know, at least enough to want to craft your own.
You know, it's an interesting thing. I started building mostly guitars, and what I really wanted to do was build archtops, but being the crab that I am, cancer. I approach things from the side sometimes instead of going head on. So I decided that I would learn more by learning to do repairs and fix things than I would if I just bought a piece of wood and started trying to build a guitar. So I worked in a couple of repair shops. I pestered the guys in Washington, D.C., where I got my real start for so long they finally gave up and let me come in and work. And I ended up, well, the repairman that was there was going on vacation, and he left this incredibly small shop that was probably 20 by 20 with a stack of 60 guitars to repair, and he was going to go away for 30 days. And his view was that he would have a boatload of income to make when he came back. But the owner's view was that nobody else could stand in the shop because there were 60 instruments to repair, and he didn't like that. So he finally said, okay, you can come in here, you can have half of what you fix, anything you break, you own. And fortunately, most of it was like changing tuning machines, restringing, a little piddly stuff that just, you know, was quick and easy money. So when Billy came back from his vacation, there were only 20 guitars, and he was really upset. And the owner decided that I should be able to stay. So Billy would only do certain kinds of repairs. He wouldn't try anything above a certain level of craftsmanship. And he probably could have, he just didn't want to do it. And I, on the other hand, would do anything. If somebody walked in with a guitar they sat on, Billy would say, it's garbage, throw it away. And I'd go, wait, let me look at it. And make them an offer to repair it. And if it worked, they could pay me for the parts while I learned what I was doing. And if it didn't work, they were going to throw it away anyway. Big deal. And so I ended up doing that for several years until I learned quite a bit about what made an instrument pick. And then Billy got fed up and left. And I stayed there for almost 4 years and did a boatload of repairs, and then ended up moving to Florida and opening my own place. Do you remember your very first design? Were you a natural at designing these bass guitars, or was it a learn from your mistakes type of experience? It's both. The first designs, there's some of them still around. There's a bunch of them still being played from 1978 and 79. The very first design, there may be 2 of those left in existence, but there were only 5 to begin with. One of them belonged to a friend who passed away and was willed to a buddy of his who's got it out in Southern California. The other ones belonged to a cat named Bob Greenlee, who was the bass player for Reed Boy Slim and the Sex Stage Band, which was a pretty well-known pop band way back when. Not that anybody remembers them now, though. He had several of them, and then the design changed to something with a cutaway behind the bridge, not shaped like an alembic, but a similar idea. And that was when I began experimenting with ergonomics. and trying to make sure the bass didn't hang out so far that you couldn't reach the F with your left hand, trying to make something that balanced and sat well on a variety of human bodies. And so that cutaway was an attempt to bring the bridge and the strap, the end of the bridge and the strap button closer together, but leave more body mass for better tone. And I worked on that for a bunch of years, and then pretty much retired that by 1990, actually by 88 or 89. And that is more of the current Tobias guitar that everybody remembers. And so, and even those changed like every 6 months. They changed a little bit and got more refined, just because I learned more and more about what was going on or tooling, and could make them finer looking and finer feel. But the whole object was to make something you didn't have to fight when you tried to play it.
Well, as far as projection and sound quality, what would you say sets your bass guitars apart from the more traditional basses that, you know, are being manufactured nowadays?
Well, there are a couple of things. One is the wood combination and the quality of the effort that goes into it. The other is that since 1978, I have worked with Bill Martellini for him to make pickups and preamps that reflected what I heard. I don't know enough about electronics to fill a thimble. And what I've learned sort of out of self-defense. I don't claim to be an electronics guy.
Well, I mean, speaking of electronics, and I'm glad you brought that up, it seems nowadays, you know, we're in an electronical age, and more components are being added to musical instruments. Do you think that takes away from the sound quality, or adds to it, or just jumbles it up, or?
It can do all of those things. And the deal with Bill was that the stuff he tried to make me was always as transparent as possible, so you could hear the voice of the wood. Some people don't approach it that way, and they make great pickups and preamps, but they have a sound. And if you're trying to make the sound of your instrument be the sound of wood, then you need components that are as transparent as possible, so that when you plug into the amp, you hear the difference between mahogany or ash. And people mistake what they hear on a record or a radio or a CD for the sound of the instrument, and forget that there's $100,000 worth of mixing board at least between the instrument and the sound you hear in your ears. So the electronics can jumble things, but if the engineer's on the ball, it reflects what the instrument does.
Now let's talk a little bit about your working relationship with Gibson and the Tobias design. Now I personally don't know hardly anything about the business end of the music or the musical instruments. Was it exciting for you to have Gibson wanting you to buy your design? Were you reluctant to do it?
It was original. It was quite exciting. It was pretty cool to think that a large company would be interested in what we did. I mean, we made 6 or 7 basses a month with 7 guys. We also did 2,500 repairs a year in Hollywood at the time. But essentially, like, you know, we were a really, really small fish. And for this big company to say, oh, this is great, we should, you know, absorb you and take care of this, and we'll nurture it and do all kinds of good things for you, was very flattering. As it turned out, corporate interests didn't match my interests. And we ended up parting company after a couple of years. And they kept Tobias, which they had bought and paid for. And still, I don't know if they're still producing or not, but they were. They kept it up for quite a while.
Yeah, so what's your shop like now? How many bass guitars are you producing monthly? And out of each one, are each one individually designed for a specific person?
There are 3 of us, my son and my friend Charlie and I. And we make on the average 10 to 12 guitars a month. And we are fortunate enough to have a 9-month back order, so almost everything we build is ordered by someone for a specific purpose. physically, the body shapes and stuff are my design. But sonically, that depends on what the person wants. If the guy wants a growly and aggressive bass with a lot of focus and a lot of in-your-face kind of growl, then it's an ash body, ash neck, maple board, certain kinds of tops. If he wants a smooth, warm bass, it would be an alder body with a maple neck and, variations on the fingerboard. So each order that we have is generally tailored to the person who's ordered it for his requirements.
So as far as your clientele is concerned, what do they say to you as to why they come to you? Is it the beauty of your guitars, the sound, the reputation, all the above?
I like to think it's all the above. The majority of guys come and say, look, I have this sound I hear in my head. What can you do to build this for me? A lot of people seem to really like the feel of my basses. Not all of them like the sound. They're partial to other guys' instruments. But I get a lot of input that the neck and the body feel good on you and are easy to play all the time. But the majority of things we sell to customers are, I have this sound, I want to get this sound out of my bass and amp. Can you produce this? So between the ergonomics, the tone quality, and I like to think the craftsmanship and the art that goes into it, that seems to be what drives people.
Now, do you still get that excitement like you did earlier in your career when you see a musician using your equipment on stage or you hear your bass design being played on an album?
Absolutely. I have been one of the luckier people on the planet for all these years because I get to get up every day and do something I really enjoy. You see the signs that a bad day fishing is better than a good day working. Any day building guitars is a great day. Yeah.
So what do you got going on right now? Do you have any projects on the horizon or anything our listeners might be interested in knowing?
We are experimenting with new woods, going back to some shorter scale instruments and trying to make sure that a shorter scale instrument has a great low B and a good feel to it. We are trying to develop a couple of new things for the January trade show, but the truth is we're so far behind that some of that stuff doesn't get done as quickly as we'd like. And I guess behind isn't really the right word, but with a 9-month back order, people have been waiting long enough that my making odd things sometimes is not the easiest thing to do, rather than getting somebody who's been waiting 8 or 9 months isn't, getting an instrument to somebody who's been waiting patiently is more important sometimes than developing new stuff.
So, Michael, man, how do you spend your time outside of work, man? What do you got going on? What's your favorite TV shows? Any hobbies or anything like that?
Motorcycles.
How many motorcycles you own?
Well, between Daniel and I, there are 3. We have 2 BMW R1200Rs, and I have a 1964 Norton 750 Atlas that we keep trying to restore.
So you take those out all the time? You do cross-country trips, stuff like that?
Well, we ride to Nashville every summer for the summer trade show. And usually that trip turns into about 3 weeks of insanity. and I've gone up Highway 61 on the other side of the Mississippi, all the way around the Great Lakes, up through Oshkosh. Not all the way up Highway 61, but up to where it breaks off to go north, and gone up through Wisconsin, Minnesota, up around the backside of the Great Lakes, down through Sault Ste. Marie and across. We've done the Natchez Trace for several hours down. We've gone to Florida, went to Paris, Arkansas once.
Is there any trips that you haven't taken that you wish, or it's on your schedule?
Yeah, one is the Natchez Trace all the way to the Gulf, and hopefully not get hit by a hurricane like we did last time.
Oh, wow, on motorcycles even.
Yeah, it was very unpleasant. The other would be to ride straight west from Memphis cross country, right up the Pacific coast to Seattle and then back around. Going south in the summer is kind of counterproductive. It's just too hot and disgusting. And even though you're on a motorcycle, good speed, riding in 100-degree weather is like riding in hot soup. And not all that pleasant. So going west and north would be nice in the summers. What else do I do? Every now and then I try to play a little acoustic guitar, but not too often. That's really most of my time, is building instruments, playing with my motorcycle, and building more instruments.
So before we get off here, tell our listeners about where they can go as far as websites and social media or anything like that, where they can get more information.
Actually, there's quite a bit of social media. I have nothing to do with it. My son does it. It's a little out of my range of interests. And computers are something I only manage through self-defense. But mtdbase.com. We also have a charity foundation called MTD for Life that helps raise money to help musicians who can't afford medical care by partnering with foundations like Sweet Relief and the Grammy Foundation to help provide musicians with direct financial aid for insurance or hospital care. This year we're doing a show in January at NAMM with Little Kids Rock and HEAR, company HEAR Incorporated, which is a company that does quite a bit of education and help keeping musicians from losing their hearing. And the social media is all, I think if you go on the website, there are plenty of links to the Twitter and Facebook for both of those. And mtdforlife.org is the charity. mtdbase.com is the website.
Well, it's always good to give back a little bit.
Yeah, we've had a good 3-year run so far. We've raised a fair amount of money to help people in need. And given the economy and the way things go, up here in the Hudson Valley, the majority of people with no health insurance are musicians. And there is an organization here called O Positive that is trying to branch out nationally that does basically bartering your art for medical care. And so they have a big festival here in Kingston for 3 days or 4 days, and they post art on the streets and do wall art and play music, and anybody who performs gets to trade with local doctors and dentists for medical care. And there's a thing in Nashville called Art Docs, which is about the same. And so we've been very active trying to help with that. And, we're all in this together, and we got to look out for each other one way or the other. Right. So.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining us on the program today. It's been our pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.